We're going to do things a little different today. Here's your math lesson. I am going to have you listen to this. The cool part about this is that you can pause it at any point. So if I'm going too fast or you just need some more time to write some things down, just pause it and then take some time, get the things written down. Once you show me your notes all written down, I will give you a check to see if you were listening while I was teaching about multiplying fractions today. And if you were listening, then after that you will get to go to your next thing of fracs or reflex. So it's kind of like you're working at your own pace to get this job done. So we're going to start. Our title is Multiplying Fractions. The first thing that yes, you do need to write down, we need to learn that when a problem says of, it usually means that you're going to do multiplication or times. So when it says of in a math problem, it means multiplication or time. So here's an example. If I have 4/5 of 55. This could be an example of I have 55 students and 4/5 of them scored 90% or above. And so then I would use multiplication, change this into a little bit of multiplication. When a problem says of, it means that we need to multiply. Another example, this could be I have 55 boxes of cereal and 4/5 of those boxes of cereal are Kellogg's brand. I have 55 kids marked for lunchtime, and 4/5 of them are getting a cinnamon roll. I have 55 golf balls found in my backyard. 4/5 of them are orange. Yeah, I found golf balls in my backyard. It's pretty cool. So when we're multiplying fractions of any of those problems, I'm going to go with the 55 cereal boxes. 4/5 of them are Kellogg's. I want to know how many cereal boxes are actually Kellogg's. So when we're multiplying fractions like this, our very first step is to make both numbers into fractions. So when you look at this one, we have a whole number there. Well, I'm not trying to multiply a whole number. I have to make it a fraction. To do this, I'm going to go on over here. Here's I changed my of into a multiplication symbol. I'm going to take that number and I'm going to put it over 1. Now I have a fraction. Yes, it is a fraction that still means 55, but it is over 1 so that I can actually do this work. So, the next step, make sure you have this written down. Remember, you can pause if you need to. Pause if you need to. The next step is we're going to do something called cross-reduce, which is something you probably haven't heard of before. This is brand new. When we have fractions like this, we can make these numbers smaller if they have numbers that get along. How are we going to do this? We are going to use something we have already used before. It's called GCF. So we have our problem set up here. And we are going to do GCF. Well, how do we do GCF? We're going to do a little prime factorization. We got to check and see if these numbers are prime. We're looking for numbers that these two have in common. Because they are across from each other, that's why we're cross-reducing. The 5 and the 55. Now I can look at the 4 and the 1. There's nothing really that they have in common besides 1. And what do we know about 1? It doesn't help us too much. If I multiply or divide by it, it keeps the same number. So we're going to take that 5 and 55, and we're going to do GCF, finding the prime numbers. So the only two numbers that can multiply and make 5 are 5 and 1. So what do I do to this one? I hope you said that we have to circle it. Yes, it is a prime number, so we circle it. Then I have this 55 here. This is not a prime number. I know two numbers that can multiply to make 55. I have 5 and 11. And then I say, oh, is this 5 prime? Sure is. Is this 11 prime? Sure is. So I'm going to circle those two. From there, I'm going to find the ones that we have in common across the line. Well, I see a 5 circled. I see a 5 circled. And so my GCF equals 5. I must have really like 5. 5. All the 5s. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 5 that they have in common, that GCF, and I'm going to go up here or go over here to the problem. And on this side, I'm going to divide by 5. And on this side, I'm going to divide by 5. The GCF that they had in commmen, I'm going to go ahead and divide by that for each of the numbers. Remember, this is across. This helps me because I'm going to work with some smaller numbers then. Smaller numbers are happier numbers to me, easier for me to work with. When I cross-reduce this 55 divides by 5, and it's going to make 11. So this is going to cross out, and now I will have 11 on top. And over here, this 5 divided by 5 is going to cross out, and I'm going to end up with 1 over here. So I'm going to have a different problem that looks like this. 4 over 1 and 11 over 1. And then I'm ready for my next step. Remember to pause the video if you need more time to copy these things down. Your notes have to be turned in to be able to get your next step for your math today. The next step is my very favorite. This is what makes multiplying fractions oh so much easier than adding and subtracting of fractions and mixed numbers. When we add or subtract mixed numbers, you have to get the same bottom number. When we multiply fractions, we don't have to have that. Of course, we do have a 1 here, but we did that because of our cross-reducing. But I could have still just multiplied across up here, but I like to work with small numbers because small numbers make it easier for me. So then, I'm going to follow step number 3, which is multiply across. I'm going to multiply my top number 4 times 11. And 1 times 1. And then I just have one final step I need to do. One final step to make sure that this is solved, and that is simplify. And to simplify, it's over 1 already. So I'm just going to simplify and make it 44. And then I have found out that out of the 55 boxes of cereal, 44 of them are going to be Kellogg's. There were 55 to start with. 4/5 of them were Kellogg's. That equals 44. So we're going to try this with this problem down here. We're going to start with 2 over 9. To do this, our step number 1, we go all the way back up here to step number 1. Step number 1 says make both numbers fractions. So I'm going to look. What do I need to do to make this a fraction? Okay, I need to go ahead and put it over 1. Then my step number 2 says cross-reduce. To do that, I got to find the GCF, so I've already written it down here on the notebook. You write it in your notebook. 2 numbers that multiply to make 9. Well, of course, I could do 1 and 9, but that's not going to help us too much. So I'm going to end up with 3 times 3. Is 3 prime? Sure is. We circle it. Is 3 prime? Yes, it is. We circle it. So now we go to 63. This is a tougher one. 63. What are 2 numbers that multiply to make 63? 63. I hope you're using a resource or you're thinking in your head, 63, how can I make that? I could either do 1 times 63, or I could do 7 times 9. And when I look at 7, I find out, oh, 7 is prime. But when I look at 9, I got to break it down. What two numbers make 9? Maybe you already did this way faster than I did. I don't know. Maybe you're going right with me. That's okay. As long as you have it in your notebook and you're understanding what we did. We split that 9 apart in 3 times 3. Well, 3 is prime, so I went ahead and circled that. For the next step, I find out what do they have in common? What's across the line? Well, here I see a 3, and here I see a 3. So I know that they have 3 in common for sure. But then I look. There's another match, 3 and 3. To find the GCF, I have to multiply those two. And I find out that the GCF is 9. So then I'm going to go back to my problem. I'm going to use that GCF to cross-reduce. I take 63 divided by 9. And 9 divided by 9. And I'm going to get a different fraction now, because this is going to make 7. And this is going to make 1. So now I'm going to follow the next step. And I'm going to multiply across. Now, how did I get 1 on the bottom? Notice I cross-reduced. This only worked because I went across, and I cross-reduced. I could cross-reduce this way, too. But in this problem, it didn't work. I could do both sides, cross-reduce here, cross-reduce here, if I need to. But it wouldn't work in this one because I have a 2 and a 1. So I have this fraction here. I'm going to multiply across. On top, I get 14. And on the bottom, I get 1. And to simplify that, I just have 14. All right, you do not have to copy this down, but we're going to do the math work for it. So you do not need to write this part, but you will need to write everything that's down below here. Marcy is making cookies. For each batch of dough, she needs 2/3 cup of sugar. How much sugar will she need for 6 batches of cookies? So the first thing we need to do is find the problem. Well, since we're practicing multiplying fractions, I see a fraction right here. So I'm going to do 2/3 cup of sugar. That's what we need to have. And I'm going to do 6 batches. So that's like repeated addition. So I could do the repeated addition of 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3 and do that 6 times. Or I can times it by 6. So we're going to go through all the steps. The first step is that I need to make sure that both numbers are a fraction. To do this, I'm going to go ahead and put that over 1. The next step is I need to cross reduce. So I'm going to look at my cross waves. Here I have 2 and 1. 2 and 1, I can't find something that's they're going to have in common besides 1. So then I'm going to look at my other crossways. 3 and 6. And I'm going to go ahead and do a GCF for 3 and 6. Well, what do we know about 3? We know that 3 is already prime, but we can split 6 into 2 and 3. And we know 2 is prime and 3 is prime. So then we look for what they have in common. Well, I see a 3 and a 3. So my GCF on this one is going to be 3. So then I'm going to take that GCF and I'm going to divide on top here. I'm going to divide both these numbers by 3. And when I do 6 divided by 3, it equals 2. My number reduces or goes to 2. And 3 divided by 3 becomes 1. So then I have a new fraction of 2 over 1 times 2 over 1. And then my next step is to multiply across. So I multiply across, I go 2 times 2 is 2. I'm sorry, is 4. Ooh, I got real crazy. 2 times 2 is 4. And then I have 1 times 1 is 1. And I simplify, and our answer to this problem is that 4. Okay, last one we're going to do together. You do not have to write down Jonathan's story, but you will need to write down the written part down here. So Jonathan is making a square picture frame that it measures 3/4 foot on each side. If he plans to cut each of the 4 sides from one piece of molding, how long must it be? So it's kind of like we're doing 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4. Or we could do, find the problem, 3/4 times 4. There's our problem. So our first step is to make both of the numbers a fraction by putting this 4 over 1. And then we look at our crossways. We say, okay, 3 and 1, 3 and 1, what do you have in common? Well, there's nothing really that they have in common that's going to help me. Dividing by 1 won't help me. So I'm going to go over here to this 4 and 4. And being that it's the same number, I'm going to guess the GCF of this is going to be 4. They're going to have 4 in common. So for that, I could just choose to divide by 4 and divide by 4. This is going to become 1, and this is going to become 1, and I will have a new problem that means the same exact thing as what we had before. And my next step is to multiply across. So when I multiply across, I multiply on top. 3 times 1 is 3, and 1 times 1 is 1. And then I simplify, and this can be simplified to 3. Remember, if you missed any of these parts, you can go back and look at them again. You can rewatch the video. If you're struggling on the assignment, you can go back and look at the steps. They're going to be on my other side of the paper. Go ahead and grab your assignment and get started on that. After your assignment's done, then you get to do reflex.